This is Lizzie, and I am here with a video about books that I've been reading lately. And by lately, I mean since the start of the year. Back in, I think it was 2019, I made a video about books I've been reading then because I was just being able to get back into reading after a long time that I was having a big trouble with it. And since then, I'm happy to say I have been able to read pretty consistently. And I'm really glad. It's something that makes me happy. I love books. So I am just going to jump into some of the books I've read this year and tell you about them. And if you have read any of these books and have any opinions, please tell me. I would love to hear about it. Okay, so started off this year, I started by reading books 3 and 5 of The Dark is Rising sequence by Susan Cooper. I have 2 of the other books. I have books 1 and 4. No, I have books 2 and 4. I still haven't read 1. So I've read them out of order, but I think they work fine that way. Because there's not too much. They re-explain the information well when you miss things. Those are amazing books about magic and different mythologies, specifically English and Welsh, folklore and mythology. They're very interesting, fun reads. Fun might not be the right word, but engaging reads for sure. And if you like that kind of story, I think they are very underrated, even though they were highly regarded. So yes, I definitely recommend The Dark is Rising sequence by Susan Cooper. Another book I read, which you already knew this probably because I made a video doing a review of this book earlier, is Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. I've been a big fan of the movie for a really long time, and so I was really excited to read the book. I knew it was different. It was way different, but it was amazing. I think I love the book and the movie equally, even though they're so different. Maybe because they're so different. They tell different stories, even if there's a lot of overlap in certain aspects. The story is different. And it was an amazing story, and I loved the way it was written. It was I was hooked on it. And it made me think of the next thing I'm segueing into. Reading it reminded me of when I read The Hobbit, how into it I get, and just the storytelling that is so beautiful. So then the next thing I read this year, I reread The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings trilogy. I do this every fall and spring, and sometimes summer. I might be doing it again soon. They're my favorite books of all time. They're so amazing, so special to me. They're not perfect at all. They have a lot of... outdated isn't the right word, because there's not a time when it was right, but there is racism in them, and I think it's very important to acknowledge that. I don't see a lot of that talked about among Tolkien fans, but yes, there is racism, but there's other aspects of the book, obviously, that make it a beautiful story, and something that, to me, I think, I get surprised sometimes by the racism in them, because the story that's being told is so loving. So I guess that is when it comes to people who are impacted by racism. It's something that it's up to you whether or not you want to put yourself through the racism that's in it in order to get the story. But if you are not, I really recommend reading them just with a critical eye and ear. Or, no, you can't. Well, yeah, you can listen to books if you use audiobooks. Listen with a listening critical ear. Okay. Then I also have read this year, I reread Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. I started going to a banned books club in my town, so that was the first book that they did the time that I joined. So I read that, and I hadn't read it in a long time. I hadn't read it since I was 14 or 15, and I'm 23 now. So it was really good. I can see how it was. Fahrenheit 451 was originally written as a short story, and then was converted into a short novel. And there's parts where you can see how it wasn't fully fleshed out still. But I still think it's an amazing book. It's a very important story. Unfortunately, it's a story that's been timely for a long time. Things are bad right now in a lot of ways, but they aren't new. And all we can do is learn from the past and try to keep going with new knowledge that we have. And then for the next Banned Books Club meeting was The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. Also hadn't read that one in a long time. I read it when I was 15. And at the time, I didn't like it very much. I thought it was an important story, but I didn't like the storytelling. I didn't like the characters. And I think now I'm realizing you're not necessarily supposed to like the characters. You just need to see what is happening with them. Living in Offred's head as the story is told in a stream of consciousness form, you learn to empathize with someone who may have made horrible mistakes, but that doesn't mean that she should be in the situation she's in now. And obviously another very timely story. And I very much recommend The Handmaid's Tale if you haven't read it yet. And okay, next book was one I found in a thrift store. I was in my favorite thrift store, and I was in the children's book section, and there was a book, and I looked at it, I was like, this doesn't seem like a children's book. It's like something that goes in between the lines of young adult and new adult, but centers a child character. It was called Every Bone a Prayer by Ashley Blooms, and it was an absolutely stunning book. I recommend it very heavily, but it has very heavy trigger warnings. So if you are going to read it, definitely look those up and see what you can handle. It takes place in Appalachia. It's not quite a coming-of-age story. It's kind of a horror story in some ways, and kind of a coming-of-age story, kind of a fantasy, but kind of real. And it's a very wonderful book. I recommend it heavily if it's something you can handle. And by handle, I don't mean anything bad by anyone who can't read it. Because, like I said, they're very heavy things. And if you have trauma from those things, it would be very difficult to sit through it. So I don't want anyone that reads that to harm themselves by doing that. I read The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger for the first time recently. It was one I just never ended up reading, like in high school or anything. So I checked it out from the library, and I honestly really liked it. I understand a lot of people don't like the book because of Holden's narration. And while he's definitely a complicated character, and he has a lot of misogynistic views, he's a realistic character. He's a character who is hurting, and who it's uncomfortable to live in his head. But when you do it, I think it helps us sometimes to learn more empathy for people who are difficult. It did for me. I'm difficult in my own ways, and I know there's people that wouldn't want to live in my head either. Then more recently, like in the past week, I read The American Girl, Claudie, Wells books, Meet Claudie and Adventures with Claudie by Britt Bennett. They were wonderful. I'm so excited I finally got to read them. I just finally bought Claudie back in March. I'd wanted her since she came out, but I wanted to get her for my mom. So I got her for my mom, and my mom said we can share her. So I bought both of her books. And I read those. They're very good. The story is very good. My one criticism would be, I think they kind of lean into telling instead of showing sometimes. And I'm not sure if the author has written children's literature before, So I think that could have been a factor, but it didn't take away from the books. They were great and had very important historical information, perspectives, and just showed joy and love of family and community. So I really, really enjoyed those. Then I come to the 2 books I'm reading right now. First one is The Plague Dogs by Richard Adams. I've wanted to read this book for quite a while. Richard Adams wrote Watership Down, which is one of my favorite books of all time. And so I got both of these books on Thrift Books. So I got it. And I've been reading it. I'm not super far in, but I really am enjoying it. The only problem is, for some reason with Richard Adams books, even though I love them so much, once I set them down, it usually takes me a while to pick them back up. So I'll read a few chapters and then I'll set it down for like a week, and then come back to it, and that's not very conclusive to finishing a book. But I really love this book so far, and I'm really looking forward to reading more of it. And then the book I just started reading most recently is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. I had heard a lot of wonderful things about this book, and I've wanted to read it for a few years, but I also bought this one from Thrift Books, and it wasn't on Thrift Books inexpensively before then, and I don't like buying books new. I don't like buying expensive books. I'm cheapo when it comes to books, and most things except dolls. So, I'm only 2 chapters in, but I'm really enjoying it. Enjoying isn't quite the right word, because there's a lot of heavy things going on, but I like the book, and I want to keep reading it. So, I might update when I finish it. But if you have read this one especially, I would love to hear your thoughts on it and what I'm looking forward to. This is the end of the video now. And I'm sorry if I got on a soapbox quite a few times during this. I'm not good at staying on track or not being political. Those are things that are significant in my brain as I'm doing it right now. Okay, that's all. So tell me about what you've been reading, if you read any of these books. I would love to hear your perspectives, your favorite books. Okay, thank you. Bye.